This is the voice of the Report of the Week, signing on. Well, hello ladies and gentlemen, and everyone listening. This is VORW Radio International, the voice of the Report of the Week. It is Thursday, the 1st of November 2018. You also may be listening to this broadcast on Friday the 2nd, Saturday the 3rd, or Sunday the 4th of November 2018. VORW Radio International is a weekly light entertainment program which features a mixture of my talk and commentary as well as listener-requested music. VORW Radio International goes out to you each and every week, online via TuneIn Radio, SoundCloud, on your phone via the TuneIn and SoundCloud radio apps. This broadcast also may be heard on the international shortwave frequencies of 9955 kHz, 9395, 7780, 7730, 7570, 5950, 5850, 5130, and 4840 kHz. No matter how you're listening, when you're listening, or where you're listening from, I wish you good reception conditions, and I hope you enjoy this broadcast. Happy November. A very happy November to you all. November 1st, at least, is the date which this program is first going out. So, very, very happy early November. Fingers crossed for all of you. Hope it starts off on a good note, on a pleasant note. If not, well, there's 30 days to this month to change it around and at least finish it on a pleasant note. But I hope it's starting at least on a good note. And I hope this last week has been a fine one for you. Of course, Halloween has come and gone. But if you are a fan of Halloween, I hope it was a pleasant one for you. I hope you had a fun Halloween party, or I've never been one for parties. I'm just not a very sociable person whatsoever. But if you enjoyed just staying in, watching spooky movies, or enjoying some Halloween candy, or scary stories, or just the aesthetic of the holiday, I hope it was a fine one. If anything, hope it was a good day for you. I wasn't a big fan of Halloween for a while. As a matter of fact, I disliked the holiday so much so that I believe 5 years ago, in 2013, I went ahead and made a video actually talking about why I don't like Halloween, but since then, my opinion has evolved, and it's changed. And, of course, while I'm not a big fan of a lot of the social customs, so to speak, in regards to Halloween, such as going out and partying and whatnot, that isn't me. I do like the aesthetic of the holiday. I like the lights and some of the decorations, not the blood and gore or any of that. I can't stand that. Even when it comes down to films, I find those scenes to be unnecessary, and that's my 2 cents. I know a lot of people like that stuff. I'm just not a fan of it. But like some of the lights and the decorations and all that stuff is just so nice. So my opinion has changed. And of course, if you do like eating any candy or sweets, probably now is a good time to go and check the stores because they might be on a discount. It's something to check out. And you might find some bags of some Halloween candy that didn't sell at an extraordinarily good value if you want something to snack on. That's my recommendation anyway. So today's program is going to feature 2 main points. Going to feature some discussion about shortwave radio, right? Everyone's favorite. And also the elections in the United States. I'm going to really center things around Election Day, because of course that's coming up this Tuesday, the 6th of November, so this is the last show I can really do before then, and there's a few points I want to drive home in regards to Election Day, and I know that applies to pretty much a large number of people listening. Even if you aren't in the U.S., and you live in a democracy, and you do have that ability to vote, it is still something to keep in mind and consider, so don't just blow it off and say, I don't live in the U.S., it doesn't really apply to me, because you can still, I always try to talk in generalizations, so it could really apply to as many individuals as possible. shortwave radio, I know I can go on and on and on about it, and I know some of you listening are very fascinated in the medium, but I know that doesn't apply to everyone. However, one thing that does apply to a lot of people is a few scheduling changes. Oh goodness, yes, I know, everyone's favorite. I want to tell you, coming up on November 4th, so not this week, but this is going to impact next Thursday's broadcast on the 8th, daylight saving time in the US. I can't even begin to go on about how much I absolutely detest daylight saving time and this absolutely ridiculous practice of setting the clocks back. I detest it. I hate it. Personally, I believe that it shouldn't even exist at this point in time. We should just have a time system where there aren't any clocks that are set back and forth and none of that. You just get it and you stick with it. And none of this absolute garbage when it comes down to having to set the clock back and, for a few precious more minutes of light in the morning that'll go away anyway as winter begins to approach, at, of course, the sacrifice of any light during your evening commute, which is, in my opinion, quite important, but anyway, that's me railing about it. And I do have a personal vendetta against the time changes, because in the world of shortwave radio, it completely messes up the broadcast schedule for this show. You might be saying to yourself, well, how can daylight saving time do that? I mean, don't, like any AM, FM, and online radio station just sticks with local time, let's say you listen to your local, whatever, sports station or music station or whatever, right? It doesn't matter whether there's daylight saving time or not. If the clock changes, and, okay, well, you pushed it back an hour, right? You originally used to listen to a show on them at 6 a.m. Even after the time change, right, it's still going to be at 6 a.m. Well, this is one of those things. With shortwave radio, a lot of radio stations, even here in the US, observe a time known as UTC. And UTC is useful because it really tries to serve as one singular time that can span across the globe, so listeners across many continents can kind of be on the same page when it comes down to schedules. So I understand the importance of UTC. However, when it comes down to the audience that I try to target and reach with this broadcast, mostly being listeners in the United States and Canada, with, bases in Europe and South America, local time, especially Eastern time, is really my go-to, because I know, certain stations have certain audiences that they try to target, and I know that the audience for this program, the scheduling always works best when it's in Eastern time. I've had a few people complain to me that the schedule is in Eastern and UTC time, but, it's all about being able to apply to the largest number of people, and when it comes down to schedules for this show, Eastern time is what works. Well, anyway, right? Because of daylight saving time, Eastern time changes, UTC time stays the same. And because all of the stations stick with UTC time, all of my broadcast times get messed up, and I'll be sarcastic here, it's an awful lot of fun, and I wish it happened a lot more often. Yeah, that's a good way to confuse a lot of people, and it certainly does. But here are the updated schedules. Our broadcast on 5950 kilohertz, formerly at 6 a.m. Eastern, is now at 5 a.m. Eastern every Thursday. That's 5950 kilohertz to Western North America. Our 4 p.m. Eastern broadcast on 7780 kilohertz is now moved to 3 p.m. Eastern. The broadcast on 9955 kilohertz currently at 6 p.m. Eastern, still remains at 6 p.m. Eastern. Thank goodness. That show is probably the one that gets the most listeners now, and to have that one moved would be a travesty, quite frankly. But the 9955 kilohertz broadcast, that also includes the tune-in stream, the tune-in stream that's left, and that's how a lot of people listen. That still stays at the same time. So you can forget all the other broadcasts, that one is still at 6 p.m., thankfully. The broadcast on 7730 kilohertz, currently at 8 p.m. Eastern every Thursday, is now at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's 4 p.m. Pacific. Our broadcast on 9395 kilohertz, 8 p.m. Eastern, stays at 8 p.m. Eastern, just because. The broadcast on 5850 kilohertz that used to be at 9 p.m. Eastern is now at 8 p.m. Eastern, and the broadcast on 7780 kilohertz, currently at 9 p.m. Eastern, is now at 8 p.m. Eastern as well. I think if you kind of put yourself in my shoes, imagine doing a broadcast and trying to build up an audience and paying for the airtime, only to have all of the times that you paid for move to a different hour. It's frustrating. I can't bash the stations for it, because it's not their fault. It's just UTC versus local time conversions, and, you have to pick one and stick to it. And I'm more of a supporter of just local time, considering just where I want to target, but I could understand for broadcasters that are looking to reach an overseas audience how UTC can be more promising in that regard. But it's frustrating because it always never really goes over too well. It always leads to just a lot of confusion. But here's the best rule of thumb. If you're a shortwave listener, after this whole daylight saving time BS, that's all that I can call it very nicely, happens, just, if in doubt, check the frequency an hour earlier. If you hear my voice, then that's the new time. If not, check it the next hour, and hopefully you'll hear my voice then. But it's frustrating because I know that all of you have lives outside of this, For some, you might be able to easily switch the time an hour earlier, and, when you used to listen at 9, now you listen at 8, right? That can be doable. For a lot of us, you can't do that. You gotta get to sleep. You're at a job, right? You can't just walk out an hour early and say, I'm gonna leave. I gotta catch VORW on the shortwave. That's not practical in the least. So, I sincerely apologize. If the process was any easier, I wouldn't even be making this announcement. But it is... I want to just pull my hair out, quite frankly. Anyway, good luck to you all. You really are going to need it. Good luck. If you'd like an updated schedule in writing, something that you can perhaps cross-check, I will happily send it to you via email. VORWINFO@gmail.com is the address. VORWINFO@gmail.com. It's also the address for any correspondence, which is most appreciated. Let me know you're listening. VORWINFO@gmail.com. Okay, enough about that. I can just rail and go on against that for hours, I'm sure. Let's talk about Election Day. Now, when it comes down to U.S. politics, I'm not one to really get into saying, well, this person's better and so on and so forth, because politics today is extremely divisive. It's funny, and it's sad at the same time at how divisive U.S. politics is. And, it always has been. I just think that social media and, just some attitudes that I don't think are anything new. I think it's always been a part of people. It's just more socially acceptable to let them out. Has kind of made it to the point where you can't express your political views or opinion anymore publicly without taking some sort of loss in the process. And that's a shame. It should never come down to that, in my opinion. I think that people should be allowed to have views and opinions, and, not everyone's going to think the same. That's all that I can say on that. And it was funny, though. I remember watching the news it was actually more than a week ago, and it was saying that, I forget what it was, but like 80% of all people in the US I forget the exact poll, so don't take this as absolute fact, but it was something to this extent, where it said that roughly, 80% of all people in the US, and this is regardless of whether they're Democrats, Republicans, independent, no party, anything in between, were very concerned in regards to the level of just divisiveness in the realm of politics, and covering political events and political viewpoints, and we're concerned with that. I completely agree. But it's one of those things that makes me wonder, is it even possible to recover from it? Because if you were able to get a room of people who had different views, especially in the world of politics, let's keep it at that, and, alright, everyone was able to reach largely a consensus in regards to the divisiveness of things, then people say, well, how do we go about fixing it? And it is a black hole. That is all that I will tell you. Because all of a sudden, you're going to have one group that's going to say, well, we wouldn't have this problem with divisiveness if it wasn't for all of the Democrats going around and doing this and this. Then people would say, no, that's completely incorrect. It wouldn't be this issue if it weren't for all of you Republicans with these views and going about this and this, expressing them. And then you'll have people saying, come on, can't you both just get along? They'll say, no, I can't, because they're the ones causing the problem. No, it's not, it's you causing the issue. And people are just going to be shouting and pointing the fingers. It's a black hole. It's a lost cause. If there's one thing that people can agree on, it's the fact that there's a lot of division. People are not going to agree on anything else but that for the most part. I mean, look at it. You can't even get people to agree that the Earth is a sphere at this point. You have actual groups that give legitimacy to flat Earth in this day and age. Isn't that absolutely unbelievable? No one's going to agree on anything, and I think it's just human nature to really fight, point fingers, and especially in this day and age, I think a lot of people just kind of build up an ego. They gotta say, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm right, the world's wrong, right? The way things are at this point, people aren't gonna be able to get together and hold hands and, be happy. You see in the wake of current events, unity, good luck with that. That's all that I'll say. If only. That's a pipe dream at this point. I absolutely wish, but people at this point, so it seems, aren't willing to get along, are pretty much refusing to do so. Who knows what the future holds, right? When it comes down to voting, it doesn't matter what party you're affiliated with. It doesn't matter who you're voting for. You just gotta do it. That's all that I can say. I mean, it is your right. If you're a U.S. citizen, it's your right to vote. It's you that has that option, that ability, to go out and cast a vote for who you feel is most qualified to govern you. Be that as governor, United States Senate, House of Representatives, local elections. You have the ability to express your voice and your viewpoint in the form of a vote in regards to issues going on in the country or your state, various propositions that are on the ballot. I said this last week. I'll say it again this week. Just please get out there and vote. Get out there and vote. So many of us now, we have a computer in our pocket. We have smartphones. We're connected to the internet. It's so easy to go out, research the candidates that are on your ballot. If I were to give you my personal advice, look up who's on your ballot, look up who is up for election or re-election or whatnot, and find the person that you think really cares about you, your state, your community, doesn't just say complete lies that you know they're never going to go ahead and actually do, just feel-good statements to try to get people to vote for them or vote for them again. The people that you think actually have solutions, that are most competent, qualified for the position, those who you think will be caring, effective leaders, and that will be able to handle events with dignity, maturity, and professionalism. And you know what? Sometimes it's not going to be anyone in any major party that has any or all of those qualifications. And you know what? That's the wonderful thing about voting. Because sometimes you have that ability to vote for independents, vote for NPAs, vote for third-party candidates, and you know what? If you look them up, you can't find any of them that you think would do well in a position, then go ahead and write in. If you think Mickey Mouse would make a better governor of your state, or a better senator, or a better member in your state House of Representatives, then go ahead and write Mickey Mouse into the ballot, because that's your right to vote. Now, I know I kind of say that sarcastically, but it is your right. Yes, Mickey Mouse isn't going to win the election, but that shouldn't stop you from going out and voting for the individual who you think is best suited for the job. Go ahead and research the propositions that are on the ballot. Look them up, look into them. I know that so many of us may be reluctant to go out and vote, because I know we all aren't news junkies or political enthusiasts. Right? We might know what's kind of going on, but we're not really enthralled into it. But things, they work their way down. Things really do change with time, for better or for worse. Sometimes it happens so slowly and gradually we don't ever notice it, but it happens. It happens, and a lot of the time, again, for better or for worse, it happens because of the individuals that we elect into office and the legislation that they pass, or isn't passed, or the legislation that is overturned. It makes its way down to you in one way or another. Sometimes it's in ways that we really can't even notice, but it makes its way down. Every vote counts. And these individuals that are running, that they seem so high profile, what they do will make its way down to you, and it will impact your life in one way or another. If anything, look at your local elections. These are for people that are either governing or representing your immediate area. If there's something that's going to impact your life, that will. And go ahead and research any propositions or measures that are also on the ballot. Those definitely will impact and affect your life. And sometimes you'll look at some of these things and you'll think to yourself, if you're just researching it for the first time right now, you'll think, oh my gosh, how did I not know about this? That's the thing of it all. So many people just research it. Doesn't take a long time. I know the word research, it can be intimidating. You think, I'm going to have to go ahead and buy a Red Bull and sit in the library for 8.5 hours researching the candidates. No, it's so easy. Go ahead, browse through it, look up each candidate, which, again, takes mere seconds at this point, given the advancement of smartphones and technology that we have. you'll be able to determine pretty quick which candidate represents this, and which candidate represents that, and so on and so forth. And look at these measures. You'll find sites that make it so easy. For instance, here in Florida, there were, I think, over a dozen propositions on the ballot. And sometimes the wording on it can be tricky. And that's intentionally done. And there's websites that say, all right, here's the guide to all of the propositions, or I think they call it amendments, on the ballot in Florida in plain English. They even make it easy to read. But it doesn't get any easier and better than that. It's so easy to just research it, be informed. It's something that'll probably take under 15 minutes for the most part. If I have one other thing to suggest, a lot of people just like voting down party lines. That's just what you do, right? I think it's better to vote person, not party. And remember this, if people ever try to intimidate you, or you feel just kind of, I know it's silly, people kind of joke about it, but, peer pressured into voting with one group or another, just because that's what everyone else is doing, vote your conscience. When you're there at the polling place and you're given the ballot, you have that privacy and exercise it. If people are trying to pressure you into one thing or another, forget about them. When you have that privacy at the polls, go ahead and vote for who you and for what you think is right. Even if that goes against what other people are trying to tell you and pressure you into perhaps thinking and voting for. And don't ever feel that you should ever be forced to tell other people who and what you voted for. That's your right, and you also have that right to keep it private. Only share it if you want to. But I'll tell you this, I myself voted early. I did early voting in Florida, one of the very contested battleground states, where, like I was saying in the last show, a lot of places just pool their money and resources into it. And I went to the polling place. There were a lot of people there. Voter turnout was high. Though I will say this. Sometimes you read on media where they say that, young people probably aren't going to go out and vote this year. The way it stands, they are absolutely 100% correct in that. And that was the most disappointing thing of it all. Because while there was a line to do the early voting in Florida, and there were a lot of people there, I waited about 20 minutes to even check in. I would say the average age of the people that were online was probably 70 years old. And it was so sad, and this was on a Saturday morning when I went, not to see more people in their 20s and 30s on the line there. More young people out exercising that right to vote. If you can, vote early. It is so easy. It is exactly the same as you're doing with the general election. Here in Florida, you're just given the paper ballots and you feed it into the machine. It's that easy. Just because they call it early voting doesn't mean that you have to do 25 push-ups before you're given the ballot or anything ridiculous. It's exactly the same. It's just like voting, as you would normally. Vote early if you can. Look up where your nearest polling place is, the hours. Go for it. Just do it. You have that opportunity. Just go for it. Go out there. Exercise your right to vote. Every vote counts. Keep that in mind. And just do me a favor. Get out there. Go to the polls. And vote. Whether that be today, tomorrow, or on election day, go out, get to the polls, and vote. That's what I have to say to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. And that's kind of my spiel in regards to Election Day. This is VORW Radio International, the voice of the Report of the Week. Well, I'd really appreciate hearing from you if you are tuned in right now. Your questions, comments, feedback, reception reports, and music requests all are welcome. Send me an email if you can The address is vorwinfo@gmail.com. That's vorwinfo@gmail.com. This address is the only way I have of knowing that anyone is tuned into this broadcast, that anyone is listening. Without listeners, we can't do this show, so please, if you can, let me know that you're tuned in at vorwinfo@gmail.com. We had someone write in last week that said, it only took 15 seconds to send an email, and it is that quick. Really, all that I need to know is that you're listening. Now, it's always appreciated if you could be a little more specific and just tell me where you're listening from, because I always do enjoy seeing which geographic areas listeners are tuned in from, where the signals are reaching to, where people are tuned in. That's always of interest, but that is not essential. The thing that is essential is knowing that someone's tuned in. Only way I know is if someone emails me. That's it. That's the only way. Especially with the schedule changes, I want to know if people were able to survive the mayhem and the insanity when it comes down to that. If you're listening in on your radio, let me know. vorwinfo@gmail.com. Tuned in on TuneIn, say hi. vorwinfo@gmail.com. If you're listening in on SoundCloud, reports appreciated there. One more time, vorwinfo@gmail.com. Who knows, maybe at this point it'll just get subconsciously inserted into your dreams, and then you'll be haunted, and you'll say, all right, I gotta send him an email, and let him know I'm listening, or send in a reception reporter. Yeah. There's many ways to listen, though. Of course, you can find us on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/VORW_radio_INT. Hey, go ahead, get up, go to the polls. You can be listening to the show on SoundCloud the entire way. If you prefer to listen on shortwave, there are many frequencies. If you have no internet access, shortwave radio is your best friend. You can still listen to this show every week on many times and frequencies via radio station WRMI, WWCR, and WBCQ. This is VORW Radio International. Well, on one final note, and then we'll just jump into some music. With shortwave radio, of course, there are many things that you can still hear. For any listeners that tune into this broadcast on the shortwave, or maybe are interested in getting into the medium, I do have some good news in regards to international broadcasting. Radio Exterior de España, which is an international broadcaster, it's Spain's international broadcaster. They transmit on the shortwave, and they're not the world's biggest, broadcaster, but they usually broadcast 4 hours a day in Spanish, and 8 hours on the weekends, again, just in Spanish. And they have frequencies beamed to North America, South America, Africa, and the Indian Ocean. And mainly their broadcasts are serving, Spanish expatriates, remote listeners, but especially the Spanish fishing fleets that are out there. Some of the largest in Europe, believe it or not, the Spanish fishing vessels out there. A lot of Spanish aid workers in Africa and many impoverished regions. Spanish military personnel, and just interested Spanish-speaking listeners. And they do reach, in my opinion anyway, a very large audience, and they provide very high-quality programming. And, my Spanish abilities are very, very limited, but I enjoyed listening to them. And, they would cover the football games. And, it's typical how it's kind of caricatured. With the Spanish-speaking announcers just going a mile a minute, just going, goal! It's fun to listen to, though. It's fun, you can hear the crowd and the atmosphere, and they air a lot of coverage for that. And they air some cool music shows. Some really good tunes. I'll have to give them credit for that. And if you can speak Spanish, of course, just very high-quality news talk programming. But there's some good news. Radio Exterior de España, they're one of the few stations that I can say really does care about its listeners and the quality of the content it puts out. because recently they've made a few changes. Now broadcasts are just going to be going out 8 hours every single day, not just on the weekends. They're going to be going out in Spanish, but they're also including foreign language broadcasts as well. So if you speak Russian, French, English, you'll be able to hear their programming on shortwave as well. If you're in North America, tune into the frequency of 9690 kilohertz. That's 9690, 9.690 megahertz at 7 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, and you'll be able to hear their English service. I tuned into it the other day. Signal was outstanding here in Florida, and I'm sure it will be across the East Coast and across the continent. Really recommend you check them out. Their English service, very, very highly produced, well put together, informative news about what's going on both in Spain and the world. And then they usually do some good cultural programs, a lot of focus on music as well. Just really good high quality programming. I got to give them credit for it. It's so great to hear them again on the shortwave. They used to be on the air in English in 2014, and then budget cuts got the best of them, but they're under new management, and that management is wise enough to know that shortwave still has its listeners, and they're doing their best to cater to a wider audience, and they've reinstated English broadcasts to North America. Again, 9690 kilohertz at 7 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. That's my personal recommendation to you all. They're just a really good broadcaster from Spain. Government funded, but boy, they do a good job. Recommend you give them a listen, and, write them. Let them know that you're listening. That's why I always emphasize the email so much. It's the only way I know anyone's listening, and trust me, that's the only way that they know that you're listening to their programming as well. I sent them an email. I wrote in as soon as I heard them, and I just said thank you so much for bringing the English service back. I might not write in every day, but I'll certainly be listening, and that I will be. But Radio Exterior de España, they're back with their English service. Really recommend you check it out. Well, with that, let's get on to some music, because this show is both talk and music. I don't know why people kind of make fun of this song, so to speak, because I think it's a great tune. It's, I guess 12 years old at this point. From 2006. My Chemical Romance, Welcome to the Black Parade, some emo/alternative rock coming your way on VORW. Hope you enjoy the song. Stay tuned.